and we are now recording. And you can hear me okay and everything?
Yeah.
All right. And it's Cameron Rose, correct?
Yep.
So, okay.
Probably.
Um, Welcome back to the Fiero project. This is Jesse here, and Dayton will not be with me this time. He had some family obligations and some things pop up, so he's not able to make it. But today we've got Cameron Rose. Am I saying that right?
There you
Did I
go.
get that right? Since I messed up Dayton's last name, Dayton Shirley, Shirey, whatever he
That's an
wants to
easy
say
one to
this
mess
week.
up.
Right. Cameron, tell the community a little bit about yourself. I see you all over the internet, all over the Facebook forums, buying everything before everyone else and irritating everybody because you get to all the deals first and the cars. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Cameron Rose. I'm from Westerly, Rhode Island. So one of the few out in the Northeast for our community. And I've been in Fieros for about 3 years now. I got my first one. I actually got three within a span of like 2 months. I bought
How it
two as
happens.
project cars, turned into parts cars, and then I found this really nice 85 GT that I got from the original owner. Had been in his garage for 27 years inside. It was just a gem. And I got it for 350 bucks and fixed one little wiring issue. And the car started up on the original fuel pump, 30-year-old gas. And, that really just cemented me into Fieros, and, it was the best feeling ever.
So,
So
where's that car now?
I drove that car in high school. That is my 3800 car. Um, that car is sitting in the rear driveway at my house with no motor or transmission in it.
How many miles were on that car when you stripped it?
Waiting. It 97,000 miles when I first. Well, it's like 95. I put about 2,000 miles on it, and then my head gasket went. Well, that's a whole story in itself. I took it to a shop, young, lost a lot of money. The guy didn't do anything for me, as most Fiero people can say, I'm sure, once or twice. So then it came back home, and I did my 3800 swap just for I didn't have an oil pressure gauge hooked up, anything, and the pump seized like a minute into running. And so we're awaiting another one. I'm actually supposed to be getting a rebuilt motor for that, a remanufactured one from O'Reilly's. Because do you know who Craig Soares is?
The name sounds familiar.
He's not really in the groups as much anymore. He doesn't have a Fiero, but he had a 3800 swap 4-speed 86 GT, and he lives in Massachusetts. So we were just kind of buddies because he's local. And when I started doing my swap, we really started talking. I asked him, a lot of questions about his build, whatnot. Um, he rolled his car, and
How do you roll a Fiero?
a driving a 3800 swap Fiero in Massachusetts wintertime.
Yeah, I guess. I've been
Now,
driving in Iowa winter for
yeah.
30
Now
years.
I don't know. He said he was doing like 60, 70 on a back road, nice curvy road day after
Well, that
snowstorm,
happens.
just salt on the road. So he rolled the car, popped out of the sunroof. He was totally fine, a little sore, but he was good. And I messaged him while he was at the hospital and said that night after he posted the picture, I said, if that car is going anywhere, it's going to me. So I got his car, and that car had a remanufactured motor in it, block cracked from the force in the rollover. But they're back ordered like months, but I'm supposed to be getting that warranted by O'Reilly's.
Nice.
So I'm gonna get hopefully a remanufactured 3800. So
Well, that
that
works.
car's that car's sitting patiently waiting and hoping. So we'll see how that all pans out.
Now, you're working on another project too, right?
Yep. So that
The
one,
88.
88 GT, and I got
So
that.
this thing, like I've been seen you like doing driveway frame repairs with a torch and a come
Yeah.
along and had this thing completely stripped down. So where did this car come from?
So actually last October, before I had ever bought a parts car. So I bought my first parts car last November. And I bought it with the intent to manual swap my car as I 3800 swapped it. I was like, if I'm going to do all that work, I want to have a 4-speed or a 5-speed or, whatever I can get. So I bought an 86 GT for manual swap. I ended up making almost $2,000, and I kept the manual swap parts. And I was like, wow, this was fun. This is cool. So that kind of put me into the parts cars. But before I bought that car, I was messaging this guy down in, it's like central Pennsylvania, pretty far into Pennsylvania on like the southern border. Um, and I was supposed to buy this 88 GT. That was supposed to be fairly rust free. He bought it as a project. And then when he got it home, it rolled off the trailer and hit a tree. So that's where that front end damage came from. It was very low speed, but a nice steep hill, rolled right off the trailer into a tree. He was showing us which tree it was as we picked it up. So all that guy ever actually did with the car was crash it. He didn't he never started his project. He just crashed it the day he got it and parked it. And then a year later was like, I'm never going to touch this thing. So he goes to sell it. I literally I'm first in line. I got the trailer reserved from U-Haul. We're going to go on a Friday night and come back like midday Saturday. It's a 7-hour drive. I convinced my dad to do it. And like the day before, the guy's like, I just can't sell it. I'm sorry, man. So instead of getting pissed at the guy, I said, all right, I get it. If you ever change your mind, let me know. So flash forward to like March or April, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna take a break from these parts cars. I got to focus on school, finish out the year. I'm not going to buy another car till, like summertime. Then when I got my stuff figured out. And this guy messages me. He goes, hey, things have changed. Got some bills to pay. Need this Fiero gone. Do you still want it? I was like, oh man, 88 GT, 5-speed, lumbar, the
Yeah.
color. I love the red exterior. I love the gray interior. Like that's what I would want for a Fiero. So I was like, all right, Dad, we got to rent a trailer. So the guy gave me a couple weeks and we went and picked it up. And I think it was about 15 hours total. We left at like 9 p.m. on a Friday. And we came back at like 3 o'clock the next day. And then I went to work at 4. And that car came with like $1,000 in parts. I got the person he bought it from was getting ready to restore it. And she bought like all these parts. I had boxes and boxes of boxes. I had shift linkage, brand new hardware for stuff, heater core, AC compressor, alternator, starter, like just
So you had
boxes and boxes of all
boxes
this
of
stuff.
stuff. Yeah.
So that also gave me the idea, hey, I got this girl's name and her approximate location. Why don't I find her and actually get some information on the car? Because this guy basically knew nothing about it. And she told me that the motor was just toast and it was going to be too much for her. I tracked it back she got it from her uncle, who got it from the original owners, I believe, who just had it parked in their driveway. They drove it till it couldn't drive no more. And then it sat there for years. So I believe the car sat since 2001. That's the best I can make out of what's left of the inspection sticker on the windshield. And that would kind of make sense to me based on the condition of the car. And there was no thermostat cap or radiator cap on. So I'm pretty sure that actually the lines filled with rainwater and then froze because the coolant lines had also exploded outwards. Same with the heater core lines. The heater core was just full of rust. Like that car needed going through, it was
It was
not
a mess.
it was not just pop a fuel pump in it and drive it. So the motor, I had a V6 that I've had kicking around for years. I've had running in. This is the third car I've had it running in. So it's been pretty well gone through at this point. So I used that motor I had, most of the parts I had, and a couple hundred more. And then I kind of just cobbled it together out of a Frankenstein of like 10 or 15 different Fieros.
Yeah. What are you doing to it now? So you had the frame, you had the engine, it's got a 5-speed in it.
Yep.
You replace the coolant lines and all kinds of cooling stuff. What's next on the list for it?
So right now, it got parked again. I was driving it every day for the last couple of weeks. Just having a lot of fun. I hadn't driven a Fiero in almost 2 years. And so I was just enjoying the car. I knew an alignment was looming. So actually, before I even got the alignment, I was driving last week and just all of a sudden I go to take a left turn and it just like I mean, I know the Fiero steering's pretty stiff. It's not great, but it was like kind of holding me back. The wheel didn't really want to turn. Then all of a sudden it kind of jumped a little bit. I was like, that wasn't right. So I drove it home and I park it, and one wheel's pointed to turn left. Not like a lot, but
Right.
one wheel's starting the left turn, one wheel's starting the right turn. It's just totally pigeon toed. Um, so I knew it was time to do the front suspension, because when I did the engine swap, I replaced all the bushings in the back suspension, sway bar end links and stuff. I just, freshened it all up, because I was kind of just gonna slap it back together, and some of the bushings weren't even all there. So I was like, all right, well, looks like I'm doing bushings, wow. It was like $70 to do everything. So I knew the front was coming soon, but I was hoping to get a little more out of it first. But
Yeah.
so now I just pulled the steering rack out today. And I'm gonna kind of inspect that. That's probably gonna get most of a rebuild. And then I'll probably do the sway bar and the ball joints and stuff.
I think, and I'll hit you up after this, but I think I actually have some poly stuff for an 88 sitting around that I
Oh
can
yeah.
send you. Because I don't have an 88 I'm working on currently, so it's just sitting.
Yeah, that'd be
I've got a
awesome.
formula that I'm
Definitely some
parting
fun.
out, but I don't have I don't
Yeah.
have a drivable one that I'm doing. What if you could have what's next on the horizon for your Fieros? So you've obviously had a bunch. I think you counted what, 9 over the past 3 years,
I
including
think
parts cars.
I've had 12 now. I think
12 now.
that's the total number. There's one that was, I never actually owned it, but it was in a junkyard. It was like 90% complete, and I literally left a bare shell there. So
Yeah,
I kind of consider that I owned that one too, considering I bought everything except for the VIN tag on it from them.
I've done that myself a few times.
So yeah, no, that was, I mean, I started looking at the car. I was like, huh, I wonder what this guy's going to charge me for everything. I was like, before I even touched the car, I was like, how much for everything? Because it was an 88 GT. It was a twin of my car
Oh,
sitting in
really?
the junkyard, and it was a pretty nice. That's where, remember, I posted that rear clip with like the nice sail panels and stuff. The taillights on my car right now are off that car. That's where I got that solid roof panel. I got a nice headliner, absolutely mint dashboard. Like, yeah, and it was, people were asking, I never responded, but I paid $600 for everything at the junkyard. And then I got 250 for the carpets and 250 for the headlight setup.
Well, and
And
I just like even myself, I went to a local junkyard and they had 2 cars, and I got both transmissions, all control arms, all calipers, um, a V6 exhaust, upper lower plenum, intake, valve covers, a few other odds and ends, $400 like for everything, and they
yeah.
pulled it all. Like, so
Oh
that
wow,
was
they pulled it for
yeah,
you?
they pulled it all for me. I just went and picked it up. Oh, and
That's
a
a
set of turbo
steal.
fins.
That's a
So,
steal.
what's next? What's next for you project wise? I know you've been I know you've been kind of clamoring for a T-top car, but
Yeah.
what's next here?
So that one actually I found out ended up in a bidding war, and it sold for like $1,200. I had sent you the other day. I'm sure. So for the viewers, we're talking about, there was an 87 T-top car, about in 2.5 hours from me. And that's definitely, if I got a third Fiero, like for me, that'd like be the only other one I could possibly get. Cause I almost would like the two, like I'd love for the 88 GT to have T-tops. I mean, that would just be like killer, but I'll probably end up with a separate T-top car. Unless, I could end up with another, who knows? I never thought I'd have an 88 now, but that would be like the goal. But right, really what I want is just have my like, I want to have a really nice example of a fastback and a notchback. I like the aero styling on both. So the dream is to eventually have my 3800 swapped, 4-speed 85 GT, and just be able to take that to shows right next to the 88 when it's, obviously it's pretty rough right now, but it'll work its way out, and one day it'll be a pretty nice looking car. So to have the both in the bright Pontiac flame red and gray interior, and just like the top of the line version of both of them too, because they both have the power options. on just about everything. I mean, the 88's even got the lumbar and the subwoofer and all that. So, it's just like the top tier spec. And I feel like, I mean, I'm not really partial to fastback or notchback. If you really made me choose, I'd probably pick the notchback. Um, but I just like kind of being able to appeal to all Fiero people and having
Yeah.
one of each.
I think the thing I like the most about notchbacks is they're easier to work on.
Yeah, you
You,
think?
I think reaching over the side
Yeah, that's true.
without that fastback clip, I think
Yeah,
it is way easier to work on. Well,
yeah,
that and I'm always worried about breaking my taillights leaning over the rear.
yeah,
So you lean over the rear, you got your taillights, you lean over the side, you got the big fastback clip. I've always
yeah.
found it's easier to work on a notchback car. I have three. My first car that I found in the junkyard, that project. I've got my '86 T-top car. You've seen pictures of that, and then
Yep.
my
And that's an SC, right? It's a notchback.
it's an SE, yeah, SE 4 speed manual with a, T-top car, and then the really nice 20,000 mile GT
Yep.
that I have, which is also a headache, but that's another story. Just
Oh
because
God.
well, it's not a head, it's a good car. I'm trying to make it perfect.
Yeah,
So like I'm still disassembling the whole front end and painting and cleaning every little piece and putting it
yeah,
back together. It's still a project car that's not really a project car, but
yeah. No, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
so your top three, your perfect three is your 85 GT, which is a notchback car,
yep.
your 88 GT, and one more. You want a notchback Aero T-top car.
That would be nice. The one I was actually gonna go look at was it was the Formula body style. It
Yeah,
was
the
like
base
the
body.
base coupe. Um, but yeah, really, I mean, T-top car is T-top car. If it was a fastback, I'd still probably be going for it. Just depends on the condition because I don't want a T-top parts car. I want a T-top car. So that's
Yeah.
why I'm not really jumping to get anything either. I'm not really dying to get one because I talk to enough people. I'm on Facebook enough. I'll find another one.
Yeah, they pop up. I mean, they pop up all the time. I mean, you have to have your wallet ready when they pop up.
Yeah.
Um, so favorite thing, favorite thing about Fieros.
Favorite thing about Fieros, probably just like how like 80s they are. Just like I feel like the Fiero like just embodies the 80s. The every from the interior just being like squares and rectangles to especially on the notchback just having those really hard body lines and the sharp cuts and those pop-up headlights and it just screams 80s to me. You got the headrest speakers and the 85 and that's what I always just thought. I mean, I've always kind of been a GM guy, Chevy, Pontiac, Olds, all that. But actually when I went to look at my first Fiero, I didn't know what a Fiero was. As I mean, probably, a lot of people do. That's probably a lot more common now. Because a lot of the older guys have, grew up around them, so they always knew what they were. But like I mean, most people I know, I'm the reason that they know what a Fiero is. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't another one parked anywhere near me in the parking lot. But I went to look at the first one and I'm not even sure what I thought it was. I think probably like a fourth gen Camaro or Trans Am or whatever. Just because like crappy pictures, mostly up front, and it was just like I think it was just listed as like Pontiac project car.
Yeah.
Um, and we went to look at it and kind of got the whole rundown and was like, didn't even realize the engine's in the back. It's like, whoa, what's going on with this thing here? Like, what is this mesh of like parts that I've never seen anything like this. And then you find Penox and you find a couple of forums, and it's like, damn, there's this whole cult behind these little
Good way to
80.
put it. A cult. That's a pretty good way to put it.
But
Um, so as you are 3 years into having Fieros now, any like knowledge or some tricks or tips? You've pretty much had these cars down and back together, as a lot of us have. But if someone new is watching this and they're like, Yeah, I can relate to this kid. You know, I really wanna work on a Fiero. Any like, hey, don't do this, or hey, here's a little trick that I learned. Any of those?
I would say the biggest thing, and this kind of applies to all older cars, is just you're better off to start, like, save up a little more, be patient buying when you're better off to start with something better than to start out with a total piece of shit that you're never going to actually finish or get to enjoy. And that's what I feel like turns a lot of people off to Fieros, is that they get this major project, they get thousands of dollars into it, and then it's still like this four-cylinder like automatic that's not worth anything, and it doesn't run. And it's when they go to offload it, they just lose a bunch of money and they just leave with a sour taste. Whereas like if you start with something that's more of a running driving project, you can really enjoy it and see what the Fieros have to offer, as opposed to just sitting there looking at it with mice in it and mold.
Very good. Yeah, that's an excellent point, because the problem is they can look good forever, but they
Yeah.
can be a total pile of junk.
Oh, you gotta. I mean, I'm sure that this happened to you. They put rust free in the description. You go there and you're like, buddy, there's a rust hole back there. This is plastic. There's not going to be any rust on
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, I think Dayton's favorite word is Bluetooth frame rails.
Yeah.
The frame rails are gone; they're just Bluetooth.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a couple where you can just pop the seats out without unbolting them.
Yeah, or I've seen trunk corners so rusted you could sling a dead cat through them. You know, it's just
Oh yeah. Yeah. I had an Indy back in December, and that thing you could literally stick your head through the space in the trunk. And
oh god,
probably your whole upper half. I bet you get the whole torso in there. It was just you just saw inner fender when you pulled back the carpet. That's all you saw. Just clean
brutal.
the other side. And yeah, no, it's such a shame the way that some of these cars were just treated. I mean, I don't think I've had one that sat less than 15 years, you know.
Yeah, I think all mine currently. My first car was sitting in the junkyard for 25 years, and I bought it back from them. And then my T-top car sat for probably 15, 16 years, and my nice car sat for a long
Yeah.
time.
And that's why they're also kind of an unreliable car at this point, is because those motors sit for 15 years with that coolant in them, and then they get run for a couple thousand miles, and they do great at first, and nothing really goes wrong with the motors, but not a lot of people are rushing to do head gaskets and stuff, on
Well, I mean, and then you got to go down the list. If it's been sitting, you've got calipers, brake
yeah.
lines, fuel pump, bad fuel, fuel filter, injectors. You know, you got to go down the line, and a lot of people don't realize everything. Oh yeah, I got this 30,000 mile car. It's been sitting for 20 years. I can't wait to drive it. Okay, well here's your list.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, you still
so
have to put just as much into that car as you would. I mean,
right,
honestly, you're better off buying the car with like 200,000 on it that never really got parked,
right, or
because
and has
that.
been consistently worked on and upkept.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Because yeah, they've all sat, and that's just what really just does the damage to them in terms of mechanicals, and making the bill so expensive. Because yeah, unless you know for a fact somebody's been through the car in the last 5 or 10 years, yeah, you have to do everything.
for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Cameron. Well, thanks for joining me, and I appreciate you coming on and chatting about yourself, introducing yourself, and talking Fieros. I never have a problem with that. Um, so we'll be back soon with another individual, and hopefully Dayton, and keep on wrenching.
Good to see you, Jesse. Take care. Thanks for
All
having me.
right, bye.
Bye.